And when we talked about sort of knowledge-based economies, and and the heads of state having sort of signed up to that, I think I think maybe we don't realize the importance then of a knowledge infrastructure. Right?
Yeah.
I think the heads of state also need to for us to get to knowledge-based economy.
Absolutely. No, the universities and the research institutions are absolutely fundamental in providing that infrastructure. And it's not simply academics, it's the whole infrastructure, as you imply. It's the management of, and the governance of those kind of institutions, it's the funding. And I think all academics across Africa are frustrated at what they see as lack of investment. Now, again, there've been many declarations, if we could list them all off by city's name. But I think we have to look positively. Countries are engaging. Some countries are engaging, not fast enough. I mean, I'm delighted that Kenya's incorporated the idea of 2% of GDP going into research, into law. We'll be even more delighted when the figures add up.
Yeah.
But, the intent is there.
At least it's a start.
The intent is there. Other countries, and I don't want to sort of pick and choose, but some are quite notable for really pushing now. Mauritius, Rwanda, Senegal, Ethiopia, as well as Kenya. So there is sign of movement. It just needs to be more. There needs to be investment, not just from governments, but from society as a whole, because industries can't work without knowledge infrastructure either. And I think there needs to, this is increasingly recognised as well.
And how are you engaging African philanthropists to be part of the African Oxford Initiative?
Well, again, I make not a distinction, but I just sort of point out that I guess I work on two fronts, as it were. One is with the African Academy of Sciences, where we're engaged across the continent in promoting science, and one in the African Oxford Initiative. Now, the two are related in the sense that we work closely together, we have an MOU. And from both perspectives, we engage with African philanthropists and with African businesses, as it were, with the same aim of convincing them of the importance of investment in science. It's hard because, as you know, everyone always says, African philanthropists, but every African philanthropist will have a waste paper basket full of letters that people have written.
I think we're all philanthropists, because everyone's sort of supporting a huge families and extended families.
Exactly. So you've got to make the case. You've got to engage people as to why it's in their interest, their business's interest, their sector's interest, their country's interest. And it's a case you have to make continuously. So, it's tough, but we certainly do see African philanthropy as an emerging area, and we hope that at least some of it, as it has been in the rest of the world, will be directed toward science.
And I mean, do you think sort of teaching versus research? Give us your perspective on that, because I think that's really interesting for African academics.
It is. Well, teaching is critical. Teaching is what produces the next generation, and research is critical because research generates knowledge and knowledge base, but it's also informs the quality of what is taught. So they're inextricably linked. And traditionally around the world, the role of universities is to combine both. And I think most of my colleagues in African universities would agree that the balance has swung way towards teaching in most African universities. This is a result of, again, resource issues. So the average teaching load in an African university is massive. Leaves very little time for research. And the question is, how do you address that and free up space for high quality research while at the same time improving the quality of teaching delivery? This is a real challenge, and it's a challenge which all governments are going to have to face across the continent.
I think applying to Oxford can be quite intimidating for a young person, and a lot of young people may feel that it's outside of their reach. As I'm a branding person, I mean, does Oxford need a rebrand in terms of, the perception? Because I think it's perception. I mean, I go there regularly, but I think it's a perception issue.
I think there is, and this is not just across Africa. I mean, we have the same issues in the UK. I think if you come from a working class community in the UK or a minority community in the UK, the same issues apply. Does Oxford need to rebrand? Well, I guess I am in danger of annoying some of my colleagues at Oxford. I'm not a branding person. I think Oxford certainly needs to change in certain ways. And the key issue is to increase diversity in every way. And I think across the university is committed to this, but we need to move faster. And I guess that's what Africa Oxford is about. But there are many other people in Oxford who are also working in the same areas. We absolutely have to increase diversity, not just in relation to Africa. And that isn't because it's a politically correct thing to do. It's because I think everybody increasingly recognises that for all organisations, diversity is a driver of creativity.
Absolutely.
So many of us in Oxford are committed to that. I think we need to be more committed, and that needs to be evident. And going back to what you were saying about it's, being frightened of applying, that applies, as I say, in the UK, it applies in Africa. One of the things we're trying to do from the Africa Oxford Initiative is make that easier. We're trying to engage with potential applicants. We're trying to draw on Oxford alumni across the continent to engage and mentor potential applicants. And if you look on the internet, you'll find a very nice video made by African students in Oxford, not promoted by the university to do this, but this is from the African Students' Society, making exactly this point. And it's basically saying to colleagues, we didn't think we could come, but we applied, and it's really encouraging more people to apply because, in the end, you certainly won't go to somewhere you don't apply to.
Absolutely,
so
yeah.
Whatever your fears about it, you certainly won't go there if you don't apply. So we're really keen to reduce those barriers.
So if you were to talk to sort of a young student wanting to apply, what would your advice be to them?
Well, it would be firstly be clear what you want to do, as it always is to people. Think through what is it you want to do. Why do you want to go to Oxford? There are good universities in Africa, as we said earlier. So we're not at all saying, oh, you must apply to Oxford. But if it's in an area where you will benefit, and I think this is particularly true for postdoctoral students, masters and PhDs, be clear what you want to do. And then you need to think through and talk to people to find out what are the key parts of applying. And there are many things to do with, if you like, style or formatting. And this is true of all organisations. I'm sure in certain industries, there's an agreed way, a language, a sort of conceptual
guidelines.
And one needs to know that. These are things you can learn, and these are things one can be helped with, and that's what we should be doing, try to make sure that everyone starts from the same sort of, that no one's penalised by having been brought up in one culture or another culture. And by culture, I mean even just a language culture, like even in a whole group of people who speak English in different ways, whether it's across the UK, whether it's across the world, there are ways of writing, ways of presenting arguments, which, like it or not, are going to be more or less successful in different environments. So we have to help make sure that people are sort of brought to the same starting point.
Great. And what about funding? I mean, I think that's the other thing. What initiatives or scholarships, might African students not know about? And because I think there are a lot.
There are an increasing number, I'm happy to say, and certainly if people want to have a look at the AfOx website, we try and list fellowships which are available for African students. We're also trying to encourage partners to make more available. International organisations do fund an increasing number. The only advice I think one can give is check the obvious sites. As I say, we do list fellowships on our website. All the major funders list what they do, and part of our job is to raise more and more funding for this, and that's the thing we're very engaged with. See, is one of our major issues. So, just in the narrow context of Oxford, we would really love to, double quickly the number of postgraduate students from the continent in Oxford, and that would take a lot of doing, but that's the kind of thing we want to do.
And the academy, which you've sort of run for 25?
Oh no. So the African Academy of Sciences, I jumped in because I'm sure my colleagues would be horrified if I said I'd run it.
Okay.
So the 25 years I was actually running a research centre, a Kenya Medical Research Institute, Oxford Wellcome Trust Collaborative Research Centre. The African Academy of Sciences, which I'm now with in Nairobi, is a Continental Academy. It has fellows from right across Africa, and we've recently made a massive change in building a platform to develop science across the continent. So my engagement there is working with a whole team of people to, again, do landscaping, looking at what are the gaps across science in the broadest sense. We're not talking about any particular sort of science, we're talking really about academic enterprise. What are the gaps? Who are the partners we can work with, both internationally, but within Africa in particular, because I think everyone recognises that in the end, funding for all these things is going to come essentially from within Africa.
Yeah.
And that's entirely feasible. I mean, there is no reason why that won't be the case.
And I think that's what Africa wants.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course,
Africa wants,
of course.
you know, Africa wants to be able to, you know, do their thing and contribute to the continent.
Yeah.
Which is really important, because I think the whole issue of dependency is quite a dangerous one. So
No, absolutely. So the whole ethos behind what we've done recently in the academy is what we call shifting the centre of gravity, so that thinking about and funding science happens from within Africa. Now, of course, international funding is very important. I mean, absolutely, we need good partnerships with international funders.
Sure.
But that's in the end not where the investment is going to come from. I was saying earlier, we need 1 million PhDs. That will probably cost about $20 billion, and people say, well, where's that going to come from? But in fact, if you look at the GDP of Africa, if we were investing the 1% which we've all committed to, it would be easily funded, even right now, never mind as economies grow. So I think it's really important to have that balance right between international funding, which is great, we're not criticising it at all, we partner with many international funders, but our whole point is to move the centre of gravity of that thinking and that doing to be based in Africa. And I think, you know, that's what we've done over the last 2 or 3 years within the Academy.
It's incredible.